Shalom, my name is Yeshua Yaakov, and this video is being made from Jerusalem. It answers and comments upon Oprah's church, and it's in particular about her denial of Christ. Well, that's her prerogative and choice. I'm sure Christians would prefer that she didn't, but that's her prerogative and choice. Having said that, I want to point out a couple of things about Oprah's church. And the pushback, which is don't drink the Kool-Aid and all these noise videos. First, I speak directly to Oprah. You're a fine, well-intending woman, I believe, from all that I've heard and seen, the background, the trauma of your youth, and it's playing out and expressing itself. You don't know it. I don't believe you know it, but subliminally you have a Kill Daddy program, and this has relationship to the deity, as well as its projective grammars. Your religion espouses that who you are requires no belief. Well, that's your definition. But let me point out that any belief in God absolutely requires a belief, in particular in you. And the you that you don't know is the one that you are required to have belief in and have faith in. And when you do, that's an evidence and a proof of your faith in God. Why? Because for a complex set of reasons that I'm not going to go into in this video, God is both within the local and the non-local reality, and quantum mechanics and science has proven this. There is a whole world in the non-local reality of the divine presence confirmed through Bell's theorem and other proofs of science that have been found to exist. Another world exists of cosmic dimensions of God's presence that we find also in the local reality that is non-local. Okay, that means cosmic. Okay. So your first statement about your religion that is at best specious, and in the worst case scenario, it's just outright wrong. And then the second one is heaven is not a location, but refers to an inner realm of consciousness. So my question to you is consciousness of what? And I would agree with it if it's consciousness of God. And secondly, if that consciousness extends to identity resolution, where you are actually able to comprehend, perceive and comprehend the collapse of the local reality and the ascent from behavioral man to cognitive man, which is the quantum reality whereby you will find out who you really are. Okay, the third is the man on the cross is an archetype image. Well, he wasn't an archetype image to himself, certainly, and to his mother and his father and his family, but that's number one. And number two, he is in every man and every woman. What is in every man? He, you're referring to the particular reference to the Christian deity in the context of the Trinity. This is ambiguous. But we know from science clearly that every man is in every other man in the subparticle level of physics and in quantum mechanics and quantum theory. It's a very complex esoteric explanation, but I don't think that's what you meant. So lest you find me agreeing with you, I would simply say that this is a very specious choice of words and a very tenuous argument at best, without any clarity and coherence. And now the lessons that you give, my mind is part of God. It's very holy. Well, whose mind? Who is my? And with the collapse of the local reality, we have deconstruction of ground zero and deprogramming. If you're saying that you have deconstructed ground zero of the exile of men and mankind, and you've deprogrammed your mind of exile, and you've ascended in identity resolution and inhabit the quantum reality, then that statement is true. And in potentia, I'm very holy, if not so. It's only a potential. So that's the clarification there. And secondly, my salvation comes from me. Actually, that's not true. Your salvation comes from God, and the collapse of the local reality proves it. And once you accept that salvation and in the denial that in fact the collapse of the local reality has brought salvation to you and all mankind, then indeed, in particular, your salvation comes from you, because it's you that has to deconstruct ground zero and deprogram your mind of exile. And if that's what you mean, I agree with you, but I'm quite clear that's not what you mean. You don't understand anything about what I'm talking about, in fact. So you're going to have to revise your religion a few times. Having said that, let's move on. Let me remember that there is no sin. This too is wrong. There is but one sin, and that is the sin of omission. And all other sins, regardless of eras or what they're called, whether in any of the monotheistic religions, they derive from the sin of omission, which is the omission of the authentic you, from you. Okay? That's the only sin. Okay? And all the others derive from it. And that requires you to answer the question, who am I? Who is the me you're talking about? Let me remember there's no sin. Well, when you know who me is, then you know indeed you've omitted the real you. And that's the me who's talking, and that ain't the real you. Okay, so do not make the pathetic error of clinging to the old rugged cross. Let's leave off the rugged cross and let's just take your words. Clinging. My dear blessed friend, well-intended friend Oprah, you are clinging to ground zero of the collapsed local reality that was the exile of man and mankind, and in particular your exile. And you are indeed, by your words, clinging to ground zero. So in that clinging, I agree with you. And that is a pathetic mistake. Okay, so take care of business at home, and then you can preach this to other people. Next, the only message of the crucifixion is that you can overcome the cross. Well, there's this psycholinguistic, cognitive, behavioral, and psychosocial meta-narrative of the cross, and the Christians have a comprehensive understanding of at least two of those levels, and you have to come to the Torah to find out about the other two to get the whole picture of the four. And we won't go into that because I don't want to be offending any Christians, but the New Age doctrine, new form of spirituality, open my mind to the hugeness of God out of the box. Well, it's you that's got to get out of the box. The box is exile. And now that exile is no more, the collapse of the local reality has brought the end of man and mankind exile. The box you're now in is another problem. It isn't exile anymore, it's denial of the end of exile. So get out of that box, and you'll be doing yourself a great favor, and your millions of followers who don't have the discernment and depth and background and training to understand what you're talking about. And then you spoke about in your video that all of a sudden you were sitting in a church and you were 20 years old, and somebody talked about jealousy, and you said, God is jealous of me. Well, you said in your earlier statement that God is in everyone and God is in me. Well, the God that you're referring to that you don't know, that is, quote, the jealous God, is the real you. The part of God that's in you is jealous of the impersonator, the fake, the klippah, the one who dominated you and had you in the box of exile all of your life from the cradle. And that's the one that's jealous of the real you. That's the God who is jealous. You don't know that. You didn't understand that, and you didn't say that. Now you understand what you're actually talking about. So now we come to wrapping up this whole thing, and we have the specious arguments of God's existence, and the atheists say God doesn't exist. Well, whether we believe in creation ex materia, ex deo, or ex nihilo, if you put all three together, one deals with eternally pre-existent matter, and the other out of the being God comes creation out of nothingness. Well, they're all one. And that's what the quantum reality in general and the non-reality that Bell's theorem proves. I thank you for listening. God is a very big God. And so I'd revise my religion just a little bit consistent with what you've just learned. And you'll do a much better job, and I wish you the blessings from Jerusalem of Kabel B'Shvil Taram Yeshua Yaakov. I'm the author of the trilogy Humanomics. It's not yet published. 2,500 pages in it, a few hundred graphics. Thank you for listening. I'm Yeshua Yaakov from Jerusalem. Thank you.